Far too often, LGBTQ plus business owners believe they have to choose between authenticity and being successful. Through these real-life stories, LGBTQ plus listeners aspiring for success can gain valuable insights to navigate their path to being both queer and successful. Hey, successful fam. We know that everyone deserves a place to be successful. That's why all day, May 4th and May 5th, we are hosting our Successful Summit 2026 in Asheville, North Carolina. During the summit, you will experience panelists, keynote speakers, as well as interactive workshops led by yours truly, as well as other brilliant queer entrepreneurs across the country. If you'd like to learn more about our summit, you can find out more on queerandsuccessful.com, and we hope to see you there. Enjoy today's episode. Hello, everyone. It is me, Hunter J. McNair, your hostess with the mostest, back again for this week's episode of Queer and Successful. This week, I am joined by my good Judy, my good pal, Elyse Riley. Elyse has been in the business actually as long as I have, since 2015. And she is now the president of the Springfield, oh my gosh, already messing up my intros, the Springfield Black Tie Organization, which is a grant giving organization for nonprofits in the LGBTQ plus world. So Elyse, why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
Hi, I'm Elyse Riley. I am in Springfield, Missouri, which is southwest Missouri, if you're not geographically inclined. And I work anywhere from most of the Ozarks, is what a lot of people call it. There's a show that a lot of people know about called Ozark, and that takes place around Table Rock Lake or Lake of the Ozarks. I don't know. I've not seen it. I hear it's great, but I do real estate. I help buyers, sellers, and people invest in real estate in the Southwest Missouri area.
I love that you've never seen Ozark, because one of the things I always joke with people is that like when it comes to like real estate things, like I don't watch work. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't watch things about my area of the state. Did you actually know too that Stranger Things is based in Durham, North Carolina, where I am?
I didn't.
I know. Who would have thought? The radio tower thing is actually right down my street. Literally, like
that's cool.
Like 3 blocks away from me. I know. I almost want to get like a picture, but now I'm getting sidetracked. So you have been doing this since 2015. I've known you since, gosh, when did we meet? It had to have been like 2018. I mean, I'm sure it was the Rainbow Network thing.
Yeah, it was definitely Rainbow.
Yeah. So we've known each other for a while. We had the same coach for a while as well. So that was fun times.
Yeah.
And I know you're not actually from Springfield. I keep saying Springfield. You're not actually from Springfield. You are actually from born in San Fran, but I guess you grew up in Washington State.
Yeah. So I grew up in Washington in a small town. Well, it's like the Tri-Cities, but it's Kennewick, Washington is where I grew up. So it's right off the Columbia River. I have a lot of childhood memories of like swimming in between where the Snake River and the Columbia River meet, because you can see it. It's weird because like the Snake River is like brown and murky, and the Columbia River is blue and a lot more clear, but it's colder. So you'd switch from both, and it was really cool, fun experience. And then my dad remarried.
Oh, that's all right. I was just learned that like the like the weather and stuff in Washington is like crazy different everywhere.
Yeah. No, so like the further north you get, it's very cold, obviously. But then the area that I lived in was actually considered a desert, like a whole area of desert. Yeah. We had tumbleweeds all the time. And yeah, we had a lot of blank area of no real estate because of that. Like, but we also had like power plants and things like that surrounding the area. So it's a very interesting little town, I would call it.
So grew up there, small town. How were the vibes when it came to, the queer space? Because I think we think of Washington State obviously as a more acceptable place, but like anywhere, there's different parts, right?
Yeah. Well, I actually left. So my dad remarried and moved to St. Louis. So he definitely, I remember as a kid, like he was kind of like, because my twin and I were tomboys, but my twin, I have an identical twin, by the way. And like, there was no question. Like, on my twins' queerness, probably, especially as children. And I know that that was something that I think my parents were like, well, that's fine. They were always loving and accepting. They didn't care about that. They just always worried about the world,
Yeah.
with us. And so I remember like that being kind of a conversation. And like we both joined the Girl Scouts but we thought it was going to be like the Boy Scouts and like how our friends were in the Boy Scouts because we were only friends with boys. So we thought that we would be, camping and shooting bows and arrows. And instead they tried to teach us like proper etiquette. And we were like, no, thank you. That's just not for
See,
us.
I thought the Boy Scouts was like the Girl Scouts, and I was also disappointed. I mean, I'm like, I
Right.
thought we were selling
Right.
cookies. What do you mean popcorn? What's the
Yeah.
tea? You know?
Yeah. I don't want this. Yeah. What's this? Yeah, we didn't like it. But then we moved to St. Louis, and then I spent like the rest of my like adolescence, teenage years in St. Louis before I moved down to Springfield for college in
Okay,
2004.
okay. So you kind of split time in your
Hmm.
youth between the two states.
Oh yeah,
When you were growing up, like what did you want to be when you grew up?
fireman.
Fireman.
I wanted to
Tell
be
me
a
more about that.
firefighter. So I thought that I always wanted to do something that was going to help, that like I wanted to, go out there and help people that were in need. And I realized I probably was not going to be tall enough, five foot
Oh my
two.
God.
So,
Is that a thing?
I mean, it's more like the job really requires like you to have, I mean, there's definitely firefighters that are 5 foot two. I'm sure of it. It's
Yeah.
harder for them, because you have to fireman carry, you have to do all these other things, and like everybody knows what a firefighter does. So I settled and I became a cop later on in life, I guess. So
Settled and became a cop. And I know we'll dive into that experience too, I'm sure. Because that's, obviously an interesting thing to do when you're a lesbian. So, I mean, are a lot of lesbians cops? Cops lesbians?
there's plenty of us. There's plenty.
I'm
We've been
actually
in
pretty
really well.
sure, like at the last event we were
Hmm.
at, there was something said, and there were like 3 cops that stood up. Were you
Yeah.
one of them? 3 former cops?
Oh yeah.
Uh
Yeah.
huh. Uh huh.
Well,
We won't talk
and
about
so I
that on
was
this.
law enforcement. I was in the military and like all the fun things where I'm just like, I don't know if I need to prove that I'm butch. Like, I think I just kind of exude it. So there I
I
am
love
trying to get my
it.
butch cards.
I love it. So you go to high school and you're coming out at 16. Your twin sister already had.
Mhm.
How would you rate the experience of that? Like on a scale of 1 to this really was great.
I was fine, like not bad. It's not that because like I think my whole family was just like, well, yeah, that tracks for you, like nobody was really surprised. I remember feeling surprised that nobody was surprised, and I kind of remember being like at one point I remember having a conversation with my stepmom and saying like nobody seems surprised, and she was like, it's not. We're just a little disappointed. It's not the word because I was like disappointed, and she's just like, it's not that. Don't take it that way. But it's more just like we really wanted just more grandkid opportunities, and I'm
Oh my
just like,
gosh.
yeah, well, I'm not going to give you grandkids, that's for sure. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
getting pregnant. I say as a mom of two.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So, but
Well, that's the thing
anyway,
too for women. It's obviously a lot easier to, have children than it would be for
absolutely
me and my husband
right.
Justin.
Yeah.
So, I think that's a common experience, right? Where like we come out and our family has this perceived expectation of what they thought your life was going to look like. And it ends up
Right.
being a little bit different. And
Right.
oftentimes they mask that in worry,
Yeah.
what's their life going to be like? I'm just worried for them. That's
Hmm.
they disguise it as that, I should say. I feel like often at least. And I mean,
Hmm.
when did you know? Like, when do you think you knew that you were a butch
Probably about
lesbian?
2 years. 2 years before I came out. Yeah, a butch lesbian. I knew that because my hair just kept like gradually getting shorter,
Yeah. Yeah.
until
Mine
I
kept
was
getting
just
longer.
like,
It's crazy. Yeah.
so my twin was going to a group that I loved in St. Louis called Growing American Youth, and the acronym for that is GAY. I was like, I remember going to like 3 meetings, and I was just like, someone finally said, well, like it's not like it's that big of a mystery what Growing American Youth is, and I just remember like, why do you say that? And they're like, gay, Growing American Youth, and I'm like,
It's like
wow,
right there. Yeah.
that was dense, cool. But my twin was just like, yeah, you can come, it's fine. And I just remember thinking like, people are gonna think I'm gay if I go to that though. And then I remember realizing like, but I also might be gay. And so I met a girl there, and she was so nice. I was like, man, everybody here is so friendly. And then my twin was like, well, she's flirting. Like that's flirting. I was like, shit. Okay, cool. Good to know.
Oh wow.
And I remember like having this feeling of like, oh, I don't feel grossed out by that concept like I did with, someone that I wouldn't be attracted to, which at the time I, was just like, why can't I get attracted to any of these guys. And I was like, man, there's just something. I used to think that there was something wrong with me. And then I started changing that in my head, like, well, I'm just different. I'll just figure it out, but I'm just different. But I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know what that different meant at the time. And then my twin came out, and I was like, I think I
Mm.
probably am too. But because we're twins, and I didn't want anyone to think that I was just trying to be gay to be cool like my twin, which it wasn't cool, but even our high school, we really never had any issues. Like, I think everybody was just like, there was some here and there, but there wasn't anything like overt. Um, because our high school, there were so many students in our high school. Like, there's in like a major concert arena basically that we used for graduation. Like, that's how many students.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, so there was a lot. And so it was several hundred students in my graduating class. So it's not like, there was so many people that we could go into the groups that we would be safe in. Overall, like, the overall experience wasn't anything like crazy, but I just remember thinking like, because I had actually never thought that I would never have kids. That concept never actually hit me until my stepmom said that. And then I was like, oh, well, actually, I guess you're right. I guess I'm just stuck in a life without being able to raise children because I'm gay, and gay people don't get kids, I guess. And,
Mm.
so I was 16 at the time thinking that and just being like, well, I guess I just have to accept that as a fact.
Well, that's unfortunate because I think that's the importance of whether or not you live in a liberal area or have accepting family or whatever. It doesn't matter. You still don't have the representation on TV or the representation
Yeah.
in your community of seeing people living who are
Right.
queer, living the quote unquote normal lives with kids, with families, and you are almost led to believe that, like, no, it's black or white. Like, you're either
Right.
in this bubble or you're out of the bubble, and if you're not part of the bubble, then good luck, babe, to quote
Yeah.
Chapel
That's
you know
right.
uh,
Fun fact, Chapel Road is from Springfield.
I know, and I know that because, and we'll talk about Black Tie later a little bit more in depth, but I know that you've kind of worked with her on some things with that too, so that's really cool.
Not directly with her,
Well,
but
we'll pretend. We can pretend. It's fine. We'll just say you
oh
have
yeah,
connections.
sure.
Yeah. You've
Absolutely.
you've
Absolutely.
connected on Hinge, right? Can you imagine?
Yeah, I know. No. Oh,
You're
that's
like,
awesome.
no, I wouldn't.
No.
I love it. Well, and it's fascinating too because I don't know if you know this, but my Justin, my mother-in-law, is also a lesbian, and so is my sister-in-law.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, Justin's the most effeminate in the family.
Right.
So yeah, so what's I say that, but it's kind of true. So when Justin's mom came out, that was like her thing, where she was like, I wanted to have kids, I wanted to have a family, and that wasn't available
Ah.
to me. If so, I just fought it and I hid it, because of
Mhm.
that, which is a different time period, of course, too. But
Right.
sounds like you had the spaces to kind of be in and to figure that out
Mm.
despite everything.
Yeah.
So you graduate high school and you move down to Springfield and you go to college. What did you study?
Initially, it was electronic arts in audio production.
That's cool.
I know. I was like, "Ooh, this will be fun." I love music. It was a good escape for me. Music was like I could get lost in a book while reading music, and music can change the way you feel. It can change the way someone's tone is, even like just like music in the background, like how it impacts people. And I wanted to do something that brought people joy. But I like the music also that I'm mostly interested in, like that I don't listen to my like preferred taste in music. That's kind of grown and changed over time, but my preferred music is more of a heavy metal and
Okay.
alternative.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
like that kind of it's funny because like I love like bands like Hailstorm and In This Moment, and I'm like, oh, I just like when women yell at me, I guess. So
That's
and I'm like
hilarious.
that's not my real vibe, but like the music and stuff like that, it's just so like I don't know. I used to play the drums, and I just loved it. And my first and only boyfriend, just so I could have people that would stop telling me that they thought I was gay when I was in high school, was a drummer, and he was in my high school class, and we both like we were in drum line together, so love at first like drum line, I
That's
guess. And
hilarious.
but his brothers were in a band, and he joined their band, and so he was signed to a record label, and he's one of the sweetest guys I know. Poor guy. But he was so easy to date because he was so kind to me, and bless his heart, but he was always out of town. So he
Why?
was a
Oh,
really
because of the record,
because
because of the
because he was on tour.
interesting. Hmm.
It also made me really cool in high school because I was dating a guy that was in a band to a signed record label.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, oh, yeah.
That's so funny. I did not. I did. So, fun fact, I actually dated two girls in high school. I know.
Oh,
Can you imagine? Well, the
I,
first, listen, I'm going to tell this story briefly.
okay.
So, the first girl I dated, gosh, I pray this girl never listens to this as I admit it. I was obviously gay AF, and she was, and she probably won't because she's more, like, she's religious and probably would
Mm-hmm.
never listen to this.
Yeah.
But she loved me so much. Like, she got me like a gift
Oh.
every month we were together, which I think we were together for like 5 months. And she was in band with me because I was a band nerd. So I played flute, as you know, one gay does, and because no one
The
knew.
signs. The
Yeah.
signs were
And
there.
I know.
Huh.
And we went to band camp in Greensboro, North Carolina together. And she would try to like kiss me. And I would be like, oh, I think like I got mono. Like I think someone got me
Uh-huh.
sick. And so
Right.
like I don't really want to. She was also a really bad kisser. So that didn't help. Like, again, please, no one send this to her. I guess
Mm-hmm.
I didn't name her Holly, but she's now happily married to the guy that she dated after me. So I think I set her
Oh,
up for success.
you
Okay.
really
You
did.
know,
Oh,
you
the
know, she
timing.
the timing, it's just, everything happened under God's light, we'll say that.
There you go.
So yeah, so you're not dating this guy in college. You're full on blown
Mm-mm.
out and you're now studying
Oh, yeah.
music. How do you go from studying music to becoming a
Mm.
cop?
Yeah. So I got out of I left college because I was like, I need to start making money because I didn't want to go back to St. Louis because the environment for me up there just wasn't right. So I decided Springfield is a 3-hour drive from St. Louis and everything is closer together and it's cheaper. So I was like, why would I go back to St. Louis when I can afford more here and I don't have to drive as far just to get to my favorite coffee shop? Like there's no like if someone gives me a trap, my wife mentioned this today. She's like, why do we get a traffic report with our news? Like we don't I mean, we're big enough. So we're the third largest city in Missouri compared to St.
Hmm.
Louis and Kansas City. You know, so we're the third largest. So and we're growing significantly, but it's not the same. We don't need a traffic report just yet. Just send a message, put your notifications on for your news network, and that's all you need. We don't need traffic updates.
Well, when
So
you say third largest city in Missouri, I'm like, there's 3 cities in Missouri.
Springfield overall is made up of like several different small towns. Like we have Nixa, Ozark, Willard, which is where Chapel Roan, that's where she grew up initially, was in Willard. So yeah, like those kind of outlying areas and stuff like that. So that's kind of what makes up like the bigger area of
Mm-hmm.
where we live. So yeah,
So we didn't want to move back home after
right. So
graduating
I got
college. Yeah.
Right. So again, just I don't know why I had to accomplish more of my like getting my butch card. But when I got out of college, my friend was like, "Hey, we need more help at the shop," because she was a mechanic. But then I was a mechanic for for a minute, and
Okay.
I had a friend of mine, and I wanted before that I actually joined the military. So I joined the army. I was in the army. I know, just kind of mentioned that.
You just said, let me just
Um,
do all of it at once and
yeah, well,
let them
it's the
know.
ADHD.
It's
That's the
fair.
ADHD.
Yeah.
So I joined the army and I really loved it. It was the structure. It taught me some really awesome lessons. Like I already had like a work ethic that my dad set me up with for life, and then I had this discipline and this like regiment, and I loved it. I got out of the military and I was pretty lost, and so that was when it was like I went back to being a mechanic for a minute and I was like, this is just a job. This is not a career. I want something. And a friend of mine was like, I think you'd be a really good cop. And I was like, I think that's offensive. How dare you?
Ah.
And like I was like, I had never thought of it, but they were like, you did really well in the military. You probably do pretty good in law enforcement. And I had a friend of mine from high school that they were killed by a drunk driver. And so when I went into law enforcement, that was my focus, was impaired drivers and impaired driving detection. I've investigated definitely over 1,000, close to probably 1,500 impaired drivers, and I have an arrest record of just under 500. And it was a lot of court and I got really
Wow.
burned out and I bought a house. I like had someone was just like, "Oh, you should think about buying a house." I'm like, "When am I going to get approved for a house?" And they were like,
Mm.
"Well, how do you know until you know?" And so I applied for a loan and I was like, "Oh." I can buy a house. And that was in 2014. And I didn't have the best experience with my real estate agent, only to find out I was his first and also last client because he
Oof.
was like, I am not good at real estate. And
Oh,
I just remember thinking I could do a better job than this. So I'm going to try it because I needed to get out of law enforcement because I was miserable, I was unhappy, I was burned out. And I just, you see the worst that humanity has to offer you. And because I wasn't tall enough to be a firefighter, nobody likes a cop, it seems like
that's
sometimes.
fair.
So
Yeah.
I was like, it was one of those where I'm like, this is not how I want to help people, for the rest of my life. And I knew that I wanted to make a good living. I'm decent at talking to people. So, and my dad, he would flip houses when I was younger, and child labor is free for your parents.
Yeah.
So
So you're
I learned
exposed
a
to it.
lot.
Yeah.
So I was exposed to like real estate. My
Yeah.
dad worked really hard. I bought a house and I house hacked it. And when I moved out and moved in with my girlfriend later on, who became my wife, I moved tenants right into my house and started that way. And we did that with 2 more houses. So
Wow. So you really did do the lesbian thing.
sure did. You hauled it.
I can't imagine because you were a cop for a long time. I mean, to have done that many stops. So you were literally pulling people over and like doing the breathalyzer and like the street
Hmm.
tests and stuff like that.
Hmm. Oh
Wow.
yeah, people knew, and I got off of the DDBI task force because I just wanted to have a life because I was working evening and into the overnight hours. I didn't have time with people that I cared about, and I didn't want to lose that. So I switched to day shift, and my very first traffic stop on day shift, I remember I was heading up towards Willard, and I pulled over a car, and they were like, "Hey, what's your status?" And I was like, "I'm out doing field sobriety testing." And everyone was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Well, there's impaired drivers during the day too."
Yeah.
And I arrested somebody. My first stop of day shift was DWI.
Wow.
So I was like, I can't
Wow.
escape it. Yeah.
Well, fun fact,
So
my mother and father met because my mother got a DUI because it was DUIs back then, and she had to do community service
oh,
where my dad worked. So we are just all in the same energy.
I love it. I love it.
The way the universe brings us together.
Mm-hmm. It's funny how that
Um,
works.
yeah, yeah. No, it's I know. I'm like spilling a lot of tea today.
I love
I don't
it.
know what's up with that. Yeah, I know, right? So we get into real estate. We had a bad experience. Tell me about like your first year in the real estate
Mm.
business. Like how was that? Like what was that experience like?
I didn't know what to expect in real estate. I had someone that was at the brokerage of the person that helped me, and they just simply asked me. They were just like, "Do you if you're ever looking for a different thing, you would be a really good real estate agent." And I was like, "Me?" And the last time someone said, "Hey, you'd be a really good this," I was like, "Well, I'm gonna try it." And it worked out. And then same thing with this, with real estate. And my first year, like I didn't know what I didn't know. So I didn't know that new agents like get in and a lot of people get out. I think like the average at the time was like for every 10 agents that get their license, only one actually makes it and sticks
Mm,
around for at least 3 years. And I don't know if that's accurate to today or what, but I was like, well, that's not going to be me. And because I'm like, I don't have a backup plan.
right.
My backup plan was I would have to go back to being a cop. And I was like, I don't know if I can do that very long. I was depressed. I was anxious. I remember seeing my doctor when I was a cop because I was so unhappy. And I just said, I don't know what's wrong with me. If there's something like, if I don't think I got hit in the head, but there's something serious where like I just start crying randomly. And she was like, yeah, that's called depression. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah. And then later I got diagnosed with ADHD and I was like, okay, well that makes a lot of sense. And then when I was in real estate, like really working at it, I just dove in head first and I started getting so busy that I had to quit being in law enforcement because I was like, I'll just do this on the side, see if this works. And within 3 years, or 3 months, I was so busy. I didn't have time to be a cop. And I kept my commission and my peace officer's license in case it didn't pan out. I was so panicked that for some reason, like everyone told me how hard real estate was. And so what if it doesn't work out for you? And then it kept working out and kept working out because at the end of the day, I wanted to give people an experience that I didn't get when I bought my house. And I wanted people to understand the contract. I had a client tell me one day, you should try smiling more.
Oh
And I just
God.
remember thinking, like, do I look like the person to say that to? Like, I
Do
was
I
like, what?
look like the person to say that?
I was like, why do you think that? And they're just like, well, you're in sales. You got to be happy.
Mm,
You got to sell this. And I was like, this is a this is a contract, man. Like what do you hi, you could get sued. You know, like I
Mm-hmm.
like I'm like this is a living breathing document, but
Yeah, it's not as
this is a
sales as people.
contract.
Yeah, it's not as sales as people think. Because like, I remember I was showing houses years and years ago, and I had a client, and they walked in the house, and they loved this house, and she was like, "I love this place," and I'm like, "Listen, it's in a flood zone, and here that's like not common. Like we don't build
Right.
like that." I'm like, "Look, it's in a
Mhm.
flood zone. That you know." And
Mhm.
she was like, "So you don't like it?" And I was like I'm not here to like impose my
No.
opinion, but like I will not sell you a house that I cannot sell you later. That's my rule.
Right.
And if I know there's something that's going to keep me from being able to sell this later or hurt the ability of that, I'm going to tell you now. Because if I
Right.
don't tell you now, in X amount of years later, you're going to be yelling at me because I'm going to be telling you then. It doesn't make
Yeah,
much
you're
sense.
gonna be mad. Right.
Yeah, you're going to be mad. So, yeah. So you
Mhm.
obviously, kind of knew that going in because you had your own bad experience and you kind of
Mhm.
lead with that servant heart vibe.
Mhm.
I mean, who were your clientele? Like what, because you obviously came from law enforcement. Like who were you reaching out to? How did you get business?
So the thing about law enforcement and cops is that cops don't trust anybody, especially outside of the cop world. And so a lot of my prior, like my military connections, I was selling people homes. I was selling a lot of cops homes, but I also, and it's so interesting because I have two main spheres of influence, and it's my cops and my queers,
Mm-hmm.
and those are they don't. It's oil and water all
Yeah.
day, and there's not a lot of crossover except for the cop lesbians, and it's their own different worlds. Like I see, especially on these election years, I
Mm.
see how the same topic of conversation and the same like how the emotions that one instance in the news will elicit from different sides, and I see both of them. I mean I've literally had like all lives matter and black lives matter, like people changing their profile pictures, like on my timeline it was like black lives matter, blue lives matter, black lives matter, blue lives matter, and I was
What?
just like, it was wild to see because I'm just like, okay.
Yeah.
And like I remember this being controversial with some of my friendships in the law enforcement world because I was just like, okay, so nobody's questioning that blue lives matter. No one's that's actually not up that's not the conversation.
Right. It's
It's
not the house on
actually like,
fire.
right. I was like, so the actual appropriate one is because everybody, you got to take a stand. You got to take a side. I'm like, I'm sorry, but it's Black Lives Matter. And they were like, are you kidding me? I'm like, well, no, because what did I do? I quit. I didn't want to be a cop anymore. And it's because, of course, my life mattered as a uniform, but a lot of times people don't see the face, the personality, the name behind the uniform. There's a badge that stands in the way of who you are as an individual. You're just a part of that unit over there that's doing, pulling people over and ruining their days because they got a ticket or because they got a warning, but at at the end of the day, it's like watching those two worlds collide, and I still do to this day, but I'm much stronger towards my queer community than I am to my cop community because I'm not a cop anymore. And
Right.
the more time I spend just in the private sector of the world and not in government, I keep my money very queer. Everybody that I hire is in my community that I can because I want to support that community.
Right.
And we live in Southwest Missouri. The law enforcement world here is heavily supported. So it's just one of those things where I'm like, I'm going to put my money and my time and my effort to where I think it counts the most right now.
So you've kind of seen a shift. Like you kind of saw a shift from like your business being maybe like 75-25 to 50-50 to now 25-75, where like the
Yeah.
majority is, if not more, the majority of that space is of your clientele is
Yeah.
queer. So that's fascinating. And yeah, I mean, my grandfather was a Maryland state trooper, so on my mom's side.
Hmm.
So I totally get all that too.
Yeah.
Because I think she has like a Blue Lives Matter. Not spilling tea on my mother. She has like a Blue Lives Matter thing in her car, and I'm like,
Uh,
but she's like, bless her heart, boomers, am I right? But, it's like, it's a thing. So over the years, because we met when I guess you were starting to shift into focusing on queer people as part of your business, because we met
yeah.
through, the Keller Williams Rainbow Network and through those connections. And you then found yourself in what you're doing today with Black Tie, and you're now the
Hmm.
president of Black Tie. How did that all come about?
So black tie, I went to a black tie event. So part of it came about because I wanted to do business networking, but I wanted to business network with my queer community. Because I was in the cop world where everything was, I mean, and I'm comfortable in the cop world. I still love the cop world. I think that those are servants a lot of times, the people
Yeah.
that I know and I served with, and the people that I that I didn't feel the same way about, they just weren't in my circle. I needed to lean into where I felt the most comfortable and not just someone that could be viewed as a palatable gay. You know, I didn't want
Mm.
that to be like where people were just like, no, Riley's cool. We're good. Like, she's cool. And I'm like, yeah, no, I am. But like, I also don't need to be like your token gay. And I had a little bit of that. I have a lot of awesome people from my cop world that I love and adore to this day, and they are wildly opposite on the political spectrum from me. But that doesn't change how they feel about me and how I feel about them for the most part. But like where I needed to feel like I was at home. And so I wanted to help my community that I felt like I was like, I wish I would have had someone like when you started Queer and Successful. I just remember thinking like I saw the title and I was like, oh,
Isn't it
that
good?
it's so good. It's so
It's
good because it's going to
empowering.
be it's home. It's
Yeah.
home for where people like I if someone would have said when I came out like you can be both queer and successful, I would have been like, yeah, okay. Like I
Hmm.
hope so. That's my hope. But like success at the time would have looked like, oh, I hope man, I really hope one day that I can at least make $50,000. If
Right.
only I can make 50 grand, if only I could ever like that was that pedestal back then for me,
Yeah.
and this was, back in 2012, but that was never it never really sank in that that could happen. And so I didn't want to take for granted what success was starting to become for me. And so
Mm.
I wanted to make sure that I was experiencing that with my community.
Well, giving
And
it
so
back,
then I got
right?
involved. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's
Oh
kind of
yeah.
like, because you find that you're like, okay, I want to be queer and successful, right? You figure that out about yourself, and that
Oh
you
yeah.
can be, because that's a part of it, right? Is that we often associate the word that comes after the and as a negative thing. We
Mhm.
get to that, and then you start wanting to give back. I mean, that totally makes sense to me.
Yeah.
What are some of the prouder things for you, like that you've done with Black Tie? Because I know you just did an event, and your event. Now I got to say this because I want to make sure I tell you this, because I
Mhm.
booked Brandon Wolf for Successful Summit. And then, like, the next, before I even announced it, I saw that you had him for
Uh-huh.
Black Tie. This Homo sapien is going to think that I stole. I mean, I
No.
literally was just like, who is like, I was just looking up people that could speak. And he stood out to me because I was in Orlando the night that Pulse happened. So,
Oh.
so it's like near and dear to my
Mhm.
heart. And
Yeah.
so, and I was like, oh, like him. And then I booked him, and then I hadn't announced it. And then you announced, I was like, oh my God, she's going to think I stole from her. So you
No.
obviously had him. How was he?
Wonderful.
I'm
One
excited.
of the just Brandon is such like it is so comforting to have been in his presence in a way because he is so engaging. He's so interactive and he's just someone that's like, yeah, Brandon. Like he's like a friend to everybody. He's just that it's like a warm hug, He's
Yeah.
just like a nice little warm hug, but he's interactive, he's engaging, and he's an incredible speaker. I mean, I remember when you announced that that's who your speaker was for this event. I was like, man, he chose good. I'm
Yeah. I
like,
mean, he's not
man,
the only one, but yeah, he's the key
yeah.
one, like the big one.
Mhm.
And
Yeah. It's
he's not going to
phenomenal.
be doing a speech. We're going to be doing an interview.
Interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That
I'll be interviewing
yeah.
him. I'm excited.
I'm such a and he's very kind. Very kind. So
I know I
and
had all these
modest and just
demands.
all
I'm
the
just kidding.
things. Right.
I was like, I
No,
need this.
he's good. I want all of these things. Very accommodating, and I just thought one of our like we had a speaker the year before named V Spear with Under the Desk News,
Yeah.
and I reached out to V. I sent them a message and I was like, hey, so like this is the direction we're probably gonna go. What are your thoughts? And she was like, no notes, top notch. You're gonna
Love
love
it.
them.
Love
And
it.
I was like, great. We originally had another person that we were going to have, but they couldn't because she was having a baby. And so I
Mm.
was like, but we had like Brandon and this other speaker like neck and neck, and we just like we basically it was almost like drawing a name out of the hat. And
Mm.
so we wanted both of them, but I'm like, well, one after the other because
Yeah.
funding, funding.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not free, they
I
ain't free
know.
to
I know.
speak, but yeah,
Yeah,
but they
I
were
know,
great.
I know.
So,
Well, and I think it's important that I also just want to recognize that for a second too, because I think that there's a lot of assumption that queer people do things for free, especially in the speaking
mhm,
world or especially in like the limelight. And
yeah,
there's, what's kind of cool about what you're doing and even what Queer and Successful is doing is we're creating spaces for talented queer speakers to actually get
mhm,
paid for speaking about what they're
100%.
specializing in. And that, I think even in that world, there's a lot of belief that people can't, there's nothing to talk on in that. And I've been doing my own kind of work with keynote speaking as well. And there's a organization I'm working with that's not that common that if I said it, you wouldn't even know it was because it's a small thing. But they were like, when I told them what I do, they were like, oh, so you're like philanthropy. And I'm like, no, just because it's queer and successful doesn't mean it's philanthropic. It just means I'm queer and
Right.
successful. And so so
Right.
so what's cool
Successful because you
about,
get paid.
yeah, exactly. The successful part is because you get paid because they're like, oh, you do things
Mm-hmm.
for free. I'm like, no, 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 no. Just because it
Mm-mm.
has to do with queer spaces doesn't mean it's free. So I
Right.
think I want to acknowledge and thank you for creating that space for queer artists and queer, talent to have paid
Mm-hmm.
opportunities. It's an
Yeah.
amazing thing. I'm excited to
Yeah,
interview
it's
him.
important.
He's we're buying books for everyone, his memoir.
Good.
And he's going to sign them
So
all.
good.
Yep. And he's going to sign them
So
all. So I'm excited
that's
about that
amazing.
too. I know. I made
Oh, that's
demands.
gonna be
I'm
so
telling
good.
you.
You did. Yeah,
I
you did.
mean, yeah,
I
I'm like, I
love it.
want this, I want this. And yeah, so I'm excited. So all the things you've been doing with that, I know you also got like
Mm-hmm.
Chaperone, donated some clothes for the event that you were able to auction off. I mean, what have been some of the highlights of that? Like of just
Yeah.
all, I mean, obviously we've talked about some of these amazing people you've had. What are some of the
Mm-hmm.
highlights of the group organization?
So so a personal highlight for me is leadership and learning
Mm.
leadership and how to lead. I kind of stumbled into being the president. I was asked to be I took over as vice president because our vice president at the time, who had been with Black Tie since almost the inception of it. So by that time, because Black Tie has been in existence in Springfield for 23 years now, and they raised $10,000 before, and they were just like, "Oh my God, what are we gonna do with all this money? Like this is insane. We raised $10,000, and last year we raised a lot more than that." Like
Mm-hmm.
I think the grant checks that we just and it totaled 354,000 that we
Oh,
gave
wow.
out so far, and we have a little bit more that we're going to give in our emergency grant funding. And it's like that to me, like growing it in a way where I like looked at an event and I looked at the spaces where I was like, if we do this thing and we tweak this and we take this and we move it over here and then someone else decorates because you don't want me to do that, then I can focus on this and I can bring in more funding. And we grew, I think it was 30% my first year taking over. We grew revenue, like not revenue, but the funding that we were able to give away to more beneficiaries. We started at when I first started volunteering was 7 beneficiaries, which was a lot. And now it's up to I think 18 this year. And that's to me is the most incredible and uplifting thing. It gives me energy. It moves me to want to do more. The only thing that like stops me and kind of takes my breath away is that we were short in the total amount of asks that we had. If we had another $60,000, I could have fully funded everybody,
Right.
but I couldn't. And I just remember thinking like, how are we going to make up this gap? And there's only so much. I mean, we've raised a record-breaking amount, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the people that stayed with me on this journey and are still on it today with me. Moving into 2026 is it's going to be interesting because how do we top it?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're in unprecedented times, and you hear about all these nonprofit organizations that are actually saying there's a lot of funding being pulled, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not in this space, right? And so you can maybe correct me or give me some insight if you agree or think this is accurate. But I would say in times like this, there's so much that distracts organizations from the things that matter, right? Or tell them like it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter enough to care about this kind of stuff. And so I don't think
Yeah.
it's necessarily like I do think that there's funding being pulled, but I think what has
Mm-hmm.
to happen and what has to be recognized at the same time is that you got to put your big heels on, your 5-inch heels and get to
uh,
work, on
mm-hmm.
asking and like, showing people the value of the group or like, getting
Yeah.
those commitments where you can. Do you feel like that's a thing or how do you feel there?
Absolutely. So I think
Yeah.
it's a thing. I think one of the things that so somebody paved the way for me to take this over and grow it. One of the reasons why I was chosen for the president job of this because this is free. I do this for free. I don't get paid. Nobody on Black Tie gets paid. This is that space where we do this as a volunteer operation, but we fund all of the nonprofits that provide us with an application that has a queer program specific need. And so if there's a queer need and they have a program, whether it's for medication, which we fund, an organization here that provides medication that's life saving for people that otherwise would not be able to afford it. We house children and I mean that, like youth that are kicked out of their homes because they're gay. They came out or they were caught or whatever, and they're no longer allowed to be at their home. We live in the Bible Belt, and there's a lot of churches that they they have their opinion, and it's hurtful. And and a lot of families don't know
Right.
what else to do because they don't want to be shunned from the community that they're a part of the church. So they think they're doing the right thing, but they're doing more harm than good will ever be done by this choice. But we provide funding to house those kids. And when, like that's why I think all of the funding that has been pulled, we had here's an example of funding that's the opposite of what this is. We
Hmm.
had a university here in the area that I live, and they have historically received several $1,000s from us every year. And they funded this stuff that was then labeled as DEI, and all the DEI stuff this year was pulled. So they
Right.
self pulled all of the DEI funding, anything that could be labeled or creatively stated or however to try and hide the fact that it's DEI, they pulled all of it. And so we got over $20,000 back from this university because they were like, we can't take this money. It's DEI money. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but it's still good money.
Yeah, I'm like,
And so
it's
that
green. Yeah.
it's a grant. And I was like, And I remember the grant funder just like being astonished because we're all on a Zoom call together. And they were like,
Mm.
hey, there's an issue and we all need to get together. And they were like, there's going to be some issues with funding, but like, we're not giving any money back because that would be crazy. And then they were like, no, you're giving all of the money back. We're going to be sending you guys a check. And they did.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay. But
Wow.
the community came together though. And those programs that the university was funding, other organizations and nonprofits took over. And so then they received the funding.
Good.
But it's still kind of a shock to the system to see like we've also lost some sponsors. One of our big sponsors pulled out because they everything on their website needed to be scrubbed. And if you go to their
Mm.
website, everything was scrubbed from corporate, just saying like you can't have anything DEI or we will lose federal funding.
Mm.
And they rely on federal funding. They're a huge organization. And so we were like, okay, well, there you go. So
It's such an awful situation all around. And I mean, I'm sure like the university didn't want to not take the funding, but it is like you're saying, like it's the pulling out of resources that they can't afford to continue it if they, it's like you're having a, I hate to say
yeah,
it, but you're like bowing to a supreme leader essentially who's telling you what
100%.
you have to do. I mean, here in the
Absolutely.
Triangle, in Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, we call it the Triangle, we're a research based area. And so when
Hmm.
everything happened last year, we did see like a bit of a market shift because a lot of funding was pulled. A lot of people were worried about their jobs and their, opportunities here. So
Hmm.
it impacts everything from macro to micro, like what we're talking
Yeah,
about,
absolutely.
and it creates that kind of ripple. And then think about the kids who are in the universities who don't have the safe spaces anymore.
Yeah,
The kids like us who needed it and who needed to not
right.
have boyfriends and girlfriends when they should have just had boyfriends and girlfriends and
Right.
boyfriends, you
Exactly.
know?
I know.
I mean, I
I'm
had
like,
two
oh,
girlfriends. So what do you think I mean, now that like, obviously we're going into 2026, do you have terms for your presidency? Like when, I mean, how long do you foresee that?
so I've given them a deadline. I've
Okay.
told them that I will do this for 2 more years, including so this year and next year, and then I'm out. Partially, it's not that I want to, but it is a big job. It's a full-time job. This is a gala where we have over 1,000 people in the room. We sold 900 and 60 tickets, a little bit more than
Wow.
that. I think it was 964 tickets. We have a VIP, we have all this other stuff. Then we have, I mean, I think we have like 40 something volunteers, and not even including like my committee, which is 20 people of like, consistency. I think we ended up having like, I think 26 people that were on the planning committee. So it's just a lot, but I also have, so what I was saying before, when I didn't think, I grew up a lot of my young adult years thinking I would never have children. Well, side note, I do have two children. In fact, I have two children that are genetically mine. I did not give birth. My wife did all of the hard work. She did an incredible job and she took great care of herself. We have two beautiful children, but she had infertility and I did it's called reciprocal IVF.
Hmm.
And so my wife carried, I did the whole like egg removal and embryo and stuff like that. And so my embryos she carried. And so we have these two beautiful children. And I have My son has let me know very much that next month is his birthday. So he's almost 6. I'm not supposed to call him 5, which is devastating. But then, and my daughter is 4. So I have 2 kids. They're 18 months apart. And right now they still really, really like me. And so I don't want to lose out on that time. And I know that I only have a certain amount of time with them. Like, I'll never get their childhood back. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to overwork myself to do what I need to do in life. And there's going to be excellent leadership after I am gone from, and I'm not saying mine's excellent leadership. I'm hoping that someone who is excellent
Different.
will step in,
Yeah.
different.
Different.
Maybe a less abrasive personality. I don't know. Someone that maybe doesn't joke around so much, but also like someone who can lead and with passion and
Yeah.
fire under their belt, and that can take what the Ozarks needs and realize that we still have kids that are being kicked out of their home. We still have people that can't afford their medication. We still have really incredible programs and like partnerships with the Glow Center and PFLAG, here in this area where we fund sponsorships, scholarships, and just opportunities for people that they wouldn't otherwise have. We have some really just incredible movement in this area, and I want that to remain, but it is time consuming. And I
Yeah.
also have a real estate business to run. And what's interesting is that the more I pour into Black Tie, the more my community pours back into me. And so my business has grown, which is awesome. It's the most incredible problem that I could be facing,
Yeah.
and it's just me and my admin, and we have a transaction coordinator. We're hiring a VA, but there's only 2 real boots on the ground that are showing houses and
Yeah.
and taking listings. So
I feel you.
it's a lot.
It is a lot, I did Rainbow for 6 years, and it was a
My gosh, yeah.
non-paid, it was 6 years of
Right,
it,
yeah.
and not a
Oh
paid
yeah.
position, but, at the same time, a lot of reward in the reward, right? Like a lot of reward
For sure.
in the fact that the community wants to pour back into you. And I think that,
Yeah.
whenever we talk about our leadership roles, and you kind of said it without even me having to elicit it, but, you and I both know, like, just because you're leaving a leadership role, what you're really doing is just making space for different leadership role, not just for the organization, but for you, right? So like, you'll always have that serving at heart, and your skills will be just used in a different place. Of course, you want to spend time with your kids, and that will have its own time as well. And,
Right.
you'll go back to doing something, and you'll approach an organization and completely change its world too. And you would hope that the next person who takes over does the exact same thing that you did with their
Right.
perspective and their, like, take on leadership and role. So, like, you love it, let it go as well. So
Right.
you've got more time. Hey, you gave more of a deadline than I did for Rainbow. I mean, they kind of knew like a year before, but I didn't really I gave a lot of like hints throughout the summer, and then like a solid month and a half before I was like, hey, just so y'all know, like after this I'm out. Which is not, I probably, if it was a official paid anything or organization, I probably would have given more notice, but sometimes it's just your time to fly and your time to do your thing. So, and you've got more time and you got more stuff to do. And I'm sure there's something that you hope that, you kind of finish it out and you leave it on that high note,
Yeah.
So
that's what I think it's storytelling too. I mean, I think a lot of the success that we do with building up our community is by telling the stories that sometimes are hard to hear, but also like not every story will end in a happy ending. And that's important, that those stories don't also get lost. But we still have the beauty of, even in some of these tragic stories, they still have like the community surrounding them, where not all hope is lost, because these are people and these are hearts. These aren't just like, it's not like a number or a notch, at a shelter for those who are unhoused. Like these are genuine people that need that help, and they might be in a low spot in their life, but they still have this amazing group of volunteers that open the doors and make sure that they're warm and make sure that they're fed. And so like not every story is like the most like where you want to put it on a video screen and you want to show it at your event and all these stuff, like like the housing initiative. Like we hear stories, but their work isn't done. They need the money because they need to make the stories better. And so the stories that they help fix by giving shelter to and apartments and houses and townhouses and duplexes to some of these youth of ours, across the entire country, that is struggling with things like housing and medical care and relationship, finishing school, getting a GED, or going to college. Those are the type of things that are still really important, that I will always see as valuable time well spent for anybody that dedicates their time to it. And I'm passionate about, if there's anything that I can ever tell people, I don't feel like I lead generate when
Mm.
I'm building my community. It's not lead generation. It's just the community. I give as much as I can to the community, and they give as much as I give most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. When we're making genuine connection, the rest will just take care of itself. I think we overcomplicate
Absolutely.
this like lead generation conversation when it comes to being an entrepreneur.
Hmm.
You think
Hmm.
about even in the straight world, right? The mom and pop store. You think about like when I was a kid, there was a
Yeah.
Wilson's Grill, right? And it's like, they didn't have to like market or whatever, but they were just community centered, and
Right.
people centered. And the rest
Hmm.
will happens from that because like we've been saying,
Right.
the energy you put out, you get back in turn,
Absolutely.
from all of it.
Hmm.
And Elyse, when I asked her what I wanted listeners to get from their time on the podcast, Elyse said, I've spent a lot of time working hard and putting love into my community. And what I've found is the harder you love on your community, the more you want to support and love, the more they want to love and support you back. If you do this right with a genuine and authentic heart, you'll find a lot of love and support waiting to always help you and be there for you. Don't forget to be good to yourself too.
Yeah.
It's so good. Look at you. And you
Oh,
even like
thank
said
you.
everything that led up to that, like you,
Yeah.
yeah, like you like legit did it. Like you meant what
You're
you
welcome.
said. You meant what you
Yeah.
said. And I know for
Hmm.
you, when we talk about how you define success, you also said, you told me this
Yeah.
story because I always like to, obviously ask that as well. It's like, how do you define success? And I think that you're finding how that shift happens through some of life's obstacles, right, over time. And you shared with me before we recorded a story about a friend of yours who unfortunately passed
Hmm.
away, but before they passed away, they left a message on their social media not too long before that said, eat the cake, buy the shoes, tell them you love them, hug them every chance you get, be kind, call your people, have date night, always stand for what you believe and never have regrets. And for you, success now looks a lot more like those family vacations and that quality time, and always ensuring your business, of course, is running smoothly.
Hmm.
Does it sound like you're on that path to success, Elyse?
Very much. Very much.
Yay.
It's this life is a beautiful journey. And we get to choose our heart. I know that's kind of a cheesy thing that a lot of people say, but I really do think that we can choose to make it hard, or we can
Mm.
choose to lean into it. And some, like, depression is real. All of the external factors, unprecedented times, all of the things are happening. There's a lot of despair out there. And I choose to, when I go home, to stay off my algorithm a little bit longer, a little bit more. I want to choose to hear every laugh both of my kids make. I'm choosing those things. All of the other things are still existing, but I can handle those things outside of the joy I get to have with my kids. I used to work so many hours, and I choose not to do that anymore. I recently rekindled a really good relationship with my dad. I we were always we were close, but he worked so much. He worked a lot,
Mm.
and I looked up to him for being so successful. And like, how do you get to be such a hard worker? And then recently, he lost his wife, my stepmom, and we had kind of lost touch for a little while. But I'm like, man, that shouldn't have happened. He did everything right. He worked so hard, he worked so long, and then he retired. And within not very much time of the retirement, she got a devastating brain tumor. And it took her life in a very quick, short period of time. I think it was within 7 months of diagnosis. And, I talk to him as often as I can remember to call him. And, I'm trying to be an active participant in his life. And it's something that we have to choose to be good to ourselves,
Yeah.
not just later. We don't have to get to be good to ourselves later. We can be good to ourselves now.
Yeah.
Because when you're good to
Absolutely.
yourself, I think you're better. I think you're a better person to others around you, and you can serve more if that's what you want.
Yeah, I think we have to enjoy the journey, like you
Hmm.
mentioned. It's just like don't look at the dark, don't stare at it is the first
Right.
note, because there is so much dark out there. But it's the same
Hmm.
thing as like focus on the solution, not the problem. Right? We have to
Yeah.
only look at it and not stare
100%.
at it, because us as leaders have to say, okay, but what's the solution and how do we get through it? All at the same time
Hmm.
protecting the hearts and of our people, of our family,
Right.
our chosen or otherwise, and eat the cake, buy the shoes, hug
Yeah.
people, call your people and love on people, and bring more
Good.
light than there is dark at the end of the day.
Hmm.
Enjoy the journey, because if you're trying to rush to the end of it, the end of it is not fun.
Yeah.
You know?
I want to, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And eat the cake. I mean, eat the cake, take good care of yourself. You know, like Dana was one of those people. I met her in dog rescue, which is, another lesbian thing for everyone. But
Yes.
she was one of those, you didn't mess with her, but you respected her, and she always did the right thing. And it's such a tragedy that she can't be here anymore. When she made that post, Eat the Cake, my wife and I were on a Disney cruise with our kids, or my first like real vacation. And I upgraded to concierge because of that post. That was the post that I was just like, I'm gonna eat some cake, but I'm gonna eat some good quality, hella nice cake over in concierge, And it's like, live your life when you can, don't miss out.
Yeah. You get one. We get one. Well, thank you, Elyse. This has been a pleasure as always. I look forward to seeing you because I know we're going to see each other next month. And hopefully I'll get you coming to North Carolina to Successful Summit where I can do a better job at Brandon Wolf than you can.
I don't think that's
I'm
gonna happen
kidding.
here. I'm like, good trip.
No, I saw your decor, which I know you said you didn't do it, but I was like, damn, okay, maybe I need to find me another, someone a little bit more gay than me to do this decor. I love it. I love it. I love it.
I made sure people were on their timeline. Someone else decorated.
Amazing. Thank you so much again, Elyse. And for everyone listening, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you liked it, give it a like and a share on all social media and platforms, however you're seeing this. As always, if you want to learn more about our weekly successful calls, if you want to learn more about our merch or our training or even the podcast, you can simply visit queerandsuccessful.com. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day and even more wonderful rest of your week. And we'll see you next time. Bye.